Hi, my name is Chloe Godbold, and I attend the University of Michigan Dearborn. So first book that I'm going to read is titled Martin Luther King Jr., A Peaceful Leader by Sarah Albee, and pictures by Chin Ko. And this is the cover. Okay. Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929. He and his family lived in a pretty yellow house in Atlanta, Georgia. His father was a minister. There were lots of books at home. Young Martin was a happy child. But as he grew older, he realized that Black people and white people were not treated the same way. Once Martin's father took him to buy new shoes. The white salesman asked him to move to the back of the store, so they left. Another time, Martin accidentally stepped on a white lady's toe. She slapped him and called him a bad name. He did not react with anger. He believed that bravery meant peacefully standing around. At home, Martin learned to listen, ask questions, and speak up. He finished high school in just 2 years. He went to college at the age of 15. Then he continued his studies. Should he be a lawyer, a doctor, perhaps a professor? Martin chose to become a minister like his father and grandfather. He earned his PhD and became Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In the United States in the 1950s, Black people and white people were still not treated as equals. Separating Black people and white people was known as segregation. In some states, there were separate and not as nice bathrooms, playgrounds, and schools for Black people. Black people had to give up their bus seats for white passengers. Dr. King and his new wife, Coretta, moved to Montgomery, Alabama. He had a job as a pastor at a church. His words were powerful. He was a natural leader, and he joined the civil rights movement. Other Black leaders were impressed by the young preacher. They thought he would be a good person to help lead their cause. Then a moment came where Dr. King felt he could make a difference. A woman named Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat on a bus. She was arrested. This was in 1955, and it happened in Montgomery, Alabama. Dr. King and other civil rights leaders organized a protest. Dr. King urged Black people to stop riding the city's buses. For 381 days, most Black people stopped riding buses to work. They walked and carpooled. Dr. King walked with them. The protest worked. The Supreme Court ruled that buses in Montgomery would no longer be segregated, and Dr. King helped change this law. He had changed it peacefully as well. Sorry. Under Dr. King's leadership, the civil rights movement grew. Black people bravely sat down in whites-only restaurants. Black children bravely attended whites-only schools. Black people and white people marched together. They kept protesting unfair laws, and they did it peacefully. This picture, I believe, this picture reads, "We want equality." This one, this sign says, "End segregation now." And this one says, equal rights for all." Some people were afraid of what would happen if laws were changed. Some were so angry they shouted, set fires, and beat protesters. Once a bomb went off on Dr. King's porch, Dr. King and other leaders were arrested many times. Dr. King showed everyone how to stand up for what is right. Peaceful protests took courage. In 1963, thousands of people marched in Washington, D.C. Dr. King gave a powerful speech. The world watched him on TV. In 1964, Dr. King won the Nobel Peace Prize, a reward for his work to create fairness without violence. Then one day in 1968, a white man shot Dr. King. Dr. King died the next day. Millions mourned his death. Dr. King had known he might not live to see liberty and justice for all, but he believed there were things worth dying for. Dr. King's courage and his love, his ability to lead and to be heard will live on. In his short lifetime, Dr. King changed the way people saw one another. So these are just pictures of a timeline that I'm going to go over. So in 1929, Martin Luther King Jr. Is born in Atlanta, Georgia, and Martin is 10 in this family photo. And this is in 1929. Then in 1948, King graduates from Morehouse College. In 1953, King marries his wife, Coretta Scott King. In 1955, Rosa Parks is arrested for refusing to give up her seat on a Montgomery, Alabama bus. In 1963, Dr. King leads a peace march in Washington, D.C., and delivers a speech that millions of people could remember. In 1964, Dr. King receives the Nobel Peace Prize. Also in 1964, the Civil Rights Act is passed, making it illegal to treat people unfairly. In 1968, Dr. King is assassinated. And in 1983, the third Monday of January becomes Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is a national holiday in which we just celebrated. And then these are just pictures of like his family. So this top one is Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott, married in 1953. They had 4 children. Yolanda was born in 1955. Martin Luther the third, his nickname is Marty, was born in 1957. Dexter was born in 1961, and Bernice was born in 1963. And this bottom picture is of Coretta Scott King. And Coretta Scott King had earned a degree in voice and violin from a famous music school. After her husband's death, she spent much of her life working for peace and justice. Here is Martin throwing a ball to Marty, his second born child. And then right here, the family is all having dinner together. So the family prays before eating Sunday dinner. There's a picture of Gandhi over the doorway. Mahatma Gandhi was a leader from India who believed in peaceful protests, and Dr. King admired him greatly. And then these are other pictures. So this one up here, like his hero, Gandhi, Dr. King led peaceful protests. It wasn't easy. He was arrested 30 times. Protests included marches, boycotting buses, sitting down at whites only lunch counters in restaurants, and helping Black children go to formerly white only schools. And this next picture is it shows people carpooling during the bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama. And this picture right here is African American students sitting at a lunch counter to protest segregation. This picture up here, Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders marched in Washington, D.C. in 1963. This picture right here reads the Civil Rights Protest March from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama in 1965. And this last picture down here, well, these two last pictures, this one right here reads Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders escorting African American children to their newly integrated school in Mississippi. And right here is Dr. Martin Luther King in jail. And these are some of the pictures. And then this last picture is when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous speech titled I Have a Dream in Washington, D.C. So through powerful words and peaceful actions, Dr. King became America's greatest champion of fairness and justice for all. And the end. Again, this is the cover. I hope everyone enjoyed this book and you all understand the importance of learning about such a brilliant and gifted civil rights leader, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.